everybody. How you doing? We're happy to be here. I wanted to start with talking about how I met Melissa, and it was way before she became the darling of Solve. You guys have seen her in all the commercials and on films and everything else. She's showcased every year. But anyway, she was in the accelerator at the time and just really starting her business. And I was struck with two things: that she had a great sense of what her mission was, and she was driven for personal reasons also for this mission, and she was a hard worker. And so I just, sort of filed it. And then, fast forward a year and a half or so, and I got a call from Solve, and they said, Melissa's, got an opportunity down in District of Columbia with the DC special ed charter schools. And so we got back together, and we ended up through our foundation funding a project that Education Modified worked on. So we basically made a donation to the schools, and then they in turn hired Melissa and her team. And so that went tremendous, and she'll tell you about the impact of that. But and then, fast forward another year, and I already was obviously inclined to be impressed with Melissa, and the opportunity came up for us to invest in her company, not through the foundation, but through our impact fund, Community Impact Ventures. So we've got a good, strong relationship with Melissa, and have a high regard for her. So I'm going to ask her a couple of questions, and you'll get a better sense of the impact and what she's up to. So Melissa, what does Education Modified actually do, and when did you start, and how did you get going?
Yeah, so I was a special ed teacher in New York City Public Schools. For 9 years, I was in the classroom, and I spent 80 to 100 hours a year doing paperwork that I did not see transfer to outcomes for my students. And so fast forward, my co-founder and I built Education Modified, which is a platform to help teachers address the special needs in their class beyond just compliance paperwork. And we believe, teachers are a student's biggest asset in the classroom, and we don't provide them the tools or the technology that they need to actually do the jobs that we're asking them to do. And so EdMod gives teachers the ability to see who in their class has a special need, what that special need is, how it manifests in the classroom, and then it gives them workflow tools to actually collaborate and communicate and pass on information from year to year so that teachers aren't starting from scratch at the beginning of every fall.
And I know that's really resonated with the special ed community. And where have you grown since then?
Yeah, so we currently serve almost 300 schools across 27 states here in the U.S., the Philippines, the UAE, and a couple other places. And yeah, we've been really excited about the impact thanks to a generous donation from someone else's child, and then also impact investments from places like Solve and your organization.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe talk just briefly about the impact for that first project that we provided funding for down in DC.
Yeah, so it was in the middle of the pandemic, and we work with an organization in DC called the DC Special Ed Cooperative that specifically provides support for charter schools to serve students with special needs. Particularly in DC, only 52% of students with disabilities graduate from high school, and they are largely overrepresented by Black students. And so almost 90% of students on IEPs in DC are Black. And so we wanted to work with schools, but the risk of taking on a technology initiative, paying the money for it, especially during COVID when lots of things were kind of falling apart all over the place, was a really big risk for them. But we wanted to show them the impact that we could make. And so someone else's child provided funding for 14 of those schools to use EdMod for a year in a pilot to really try to streamline and get information digitally across to all teachers who are working with students with IEPs. And so we had a really great outcome. Over 90% of that pilot renewed, and we were able to expand to almost 40 schools in DC for this school year. And so we're looking to grow even more, and it's been hugely impactful in the ability, during COVID, people really realized you couldn't pass along paper anymore to really share information about students. And so giving teachers technology to do their jobs has been it's been really exciting to see there. Yeah,
that's great. And I think when we talk about, the first line caregivers. There's probably no harder work than special education, and we in our foundation and in Community Impact Ventures, we do have a niche where we focus on children living with disabilities, and then we can appreciate the work that Melissa does, because it eases the burden of administration for those teachers. Where's EdMod now, and where are you going?
Yeah, so we're working on quite a few different projects right now. We definitely are excited about giving teachers more tools, specifically about passing that information along. So really trying to get information off of paper and pencil for our most vulnerable students, and making sure that it's digitized, and then supporting them with on-demand content so that teachers aren't spending nights and weekends doing their own research and trying to find out information and all of that. And so, yeah, we're excited to grow. Massachusetts is one of our key states this year. We just started working with the Springfield Empowerment Zone here in the state, and a couple other places in Boston Public. And we really hope to see more of a focus, especially now because of COVID, and we're seeing a mass exodus from the profession, and really hoping that providing the profession with technology can really help sustain those types of workers.
And our time is just about up, but one last question. The pandemic has obviously had a great impact on all of education and teachers. What about in your area?
Yeah, like I just said, there's a mass exodus from the profession, and there's a conflation between caregiving and school, which we saw during the pandemic, and what that really meant. And so we really hope that we can retain teachers through technology, and obviously other things like professional development, pay increase.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you.